Bill Hecox. I'm an Android developer and evangelist for Zebra. I spend a lot of my time helping folks on our developer community, our customers and partners that buy our equipment, get on there and ask questions, because it's, as I was explaining before, that it's developing for these devices or enterprise devices in general are typically not your consumer app, right? You're going to there are some pitfalls that really can only be answered by somebody who's been dealing with this for a while. So I spend a lot of time. Developer.zebra.com is our developer community website. So one of the things I'm here to talk about today, and I've done some initial explaining to you guys about what our devices are and what we do, but for those that weren't in the room before, we build these industrial devices, enterprise grade devices with barcode scanners built into them. And so typically if you've built any barcode scanning into your application before, you've used something like Zebra Crossing or one of those libraries that are out there available that allow you to use your camera as a scanner, right? These devices in particular are meant for use cases where sub-second scanning is required to do your job, right? So, if I was to have to wait for a camera to focus on a barcode and pick up that barcode, you really just can't perform your job well enough to stock shelves or do inventory, for instance, like that. So all of our devices have barcode scanners built into them, and one of the issues though is that you need to be able to bring that barcode scanning into your application. We offer multiple different ways of doing this, and it really kind of depends on the application that you're building. So we tried to fit or give the ability to just about every need. So for instance, if you're doing web applications and you need to be able to use JavaScript, CSS, and HTML5, we have a tool called Enterprise Browser that's basically a browser that allows you to write code and do things more than just barcode scanning. So there's a long list of APIs that allow you to manipulate everything from clock and be able to do things, configure things on our devices. But one of its features, of course, is barcode scanning through JavaScript APIs. Second is the MDK, Enterprise Mobility Developer Kit. And this, again, has multiple different tools, from anywhere from being able to APIs from being able to scan a particular MAC address of a device and be able to Bluetooth pair with that device, or we have a device called a personal shopper device that gives you the ability to control the cradles that it sets in. But anyway, one of the main features of it also is its barcode scanning APIs. And we expose a Java library and a C# library for anyone that's has been developing for .NET up until this point. They can use Xamarin to build those applications. And then lastly, we have a tool called DataWedge, and that's what I'm actually going to be talking about today. DataWedge gives you the ability to basically integrate barcode scanning into your application without writing any code to begin with. So what it is a background service that hooks into our scanning framework and will, I don't know if you're familiar with how scanners used to work in point of sale system, and I think they still do today, that they have actually a wedge that they plug the keyboard into the terminal, and then your scanner into this wedge, and then it acts as though you're typing those characters into the form fields into the terminal. DataWedge works similarly, where it's going to put that data stream directly into whatever field that's selected. Right, so you can do this with a web page or a brand new application with no knowledge of barcode scanning at all. It's just as if somebody is looking at that barcode and typing in the numbers. Now, for a Codelab, what does that help us here? Actually, really, that's just kind of a segue into the capabilities of DataWedge. It gets you that ability to do that, but a lot of times you want more control over your barcode scanning. For instance, in the enterprise world, there's a lot of legacy applications, for instance, that require particular key codes or sequences of characters before or after a barcode in order for it to be shoved into the correct form field or the correct entry field on a form, right? What DataWedge allows you to do, and actually I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the camera display and kind of show you DataWedge running on the device. Takes a second to switch over. You may not be able to see this very well, but from our, and again, this is available on all of our devices. So this application, DataWedge, here's the icon. And so at first glance, it really isn't much to it, but DataWedge is built on what's called profiles. And so any particular profile could be set up out of the box. This first profile is set up called Profile 0, and it will allow scanning to any application. So any application that pops up, if you've got a form field and you scan a barcode, it'll shove the barcode you just scanned into that form field. Now, a lot of times people want more control over when scanning is enabled and when it's not. So if somebody's running a particular application and they have multiple activities, in one activity you may want them to be able to scan their associate ID into the barcode in their login prompt, but then for 3 or 4 more activities you don't really want them to have the barcode scanner on. So through profiles you can set up different use cases. So you could create a profile for your particular application and then associate the activities that are inside that application to enable and disable this profile depending on which activity you're on. And DataWedge keeps track of that in the background. It sees what's on the foreground and will re-enable the profile when necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here and select one of these. And so you can see and it's kind of hard to read on the, and I'm going to switch over to my visor tool here in just a moment, Bo. But you can see that, if somebody wanted to build a profile, they would go through here and select all these check boxes and turn on and off the different types of scanning that are available. So DataWedge has everything from being able to send keyboard output to intent output. So I can configure it to where it will send the intents and I will register a broadcast receiver inside my application. It'll receive that code and then I can programmatically put it anywhere I want, inside the form field, into a database, whatever I want. Other tools like TCP socket output. So I could take this and make this a relay to a desktop application that has a TCP socket going. They could be going around scanning their form fields and pushing it directly into a desktop application, for instance. So anyway, that leads to another issue, is where from a developer standpoint, I can build this profile, I can export it as a database, an SQLite database, and package that with my application, or for that matter, stage it on 1,000 devices if I wanted to, so that it would automatically have that profile. Then when my application gets installed, it would know that profile's there and it would switch and do all those things. In the past, say 6-8 months, it initially had intent APIs, basically just being able to tell the thing to soft scan. So all our devices have hardware buttons on them that allow you to scan triggers. But we also gave the ability to send software commands to turn the scanner on and make it scan a barcode. We had those intent APIs set up in the past, and being able to switch between different profiles programmatically if you wanted to. But we've expanded on that API set to allow you to now build these profiles through intent APIs. So now your application no longer has to, you don't have to build this profile by hand, going through every one of these menus and selecting the things that you want and configuring those things and exporting it and packaging it with your app or staging it. You can now build all this with an intent API. So baking all that in so that there's no staging involved. You install your APK, it runs the code that builds that profile, and then it's there to use whenever you want to, or manipulate that through the APIs. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump back here to this main app. And so again, Profile 0 is currently enabled in DataWedge. And so this is just a simple application that I wrote that just has a single form field in it. And so if I've got a pack of barcode or a pack of gum up here with a barcode on the side of it, I'm going to go ahead and scan it, and it's going to automatically again shove that data directly into the form field without me having to do anything, right? So if I go back into DataWedge now and turn off Profile 0, reopen my application and try to scan, you can see that the scan trigger, the light's not coming on at all, right? It's stopping the user from being able to scan. So Again, at its most basic, that DataWedge allows you to scan into those form fields. And again, if this is a web page or an application you've built or anything, DataWedge Profiles here is going to give you that ability without having to write any code. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to some code here. Hopefully we can get it to shift back quickly. Hopefully you guys can see the code there. So again, I started off with a simple entry field. Go over to the layout. Again, just a simple entry field with not much here, just to be able to show how a DataWedge can scan into that field. So one of the first things I'm going to do is show you actually how to create a profile. And profiles are based on different plugins. So one of that I was talking about was being able to do keyboard output or intent output or TCP/IP socket output. All of those are plugins basically. And the way that these plugins are addressed is, the intent API allows you to basically build bundles, and the way that you are going to configure DataWedge and for those profiles, everything from what you want to name it to which one of these plugins are enabled or disabled. And when you switch or when you send those intents, it's going to DataWedge is automatically going to receive them and build that profile for you. Let me go ahead and switch over to the main activity here. And so the first thing I want to do is add in the actual methods that create the profile. I make pretty heavy use of live templates here, so create profile, just to make it a lot easier for me to not have to write all this code and just kind of jam it in here real quick. But let me talk through it. You can see here from, there's a couple of places that are highlighted red right now, which are globals that I'll define at the top of the application. But the main thing is here, and again, this is probably the majority of heavy lifting that you'll do writing DataWedges, is actually configuring these bundles and knowing when and where which ones to actually turn on. So you can see that there's, 4 different bundles here at the top of the application that I've instantiated. And then the first block of put strings that I'm putting in there are going through the process of configuring the top level profile. This is everything from what we're going to call it and whether the intents are enabled or not. If you see the first one, scanner selection. So a lot of times our devices will have more than one scanner attached to it. There is the default scanner that's built into the device, and then there's we have Bluetooth ring scanners that basically just slip onto your hand to allow you to still, grab boxes and move things around. But you need to be able to decide which one of those scanners you're going to choose. And you can do this programmatically by saying, I want the attached Bluetooth scanner, or you can set it to auto and it will automatically shift to whichever one it decides is the default one at that point in time. So if I connect the Bluetooth scanner, it's going to be the default one. So anyway, that first block of put strings is configuring our intent output, and then with the intent output, you define a custom action. So this could be any. It's a free form string that you can decide what it is. So in this case, I believe it's com.symbol.droidCon is what I chose here. But again, this is a string that you can choose what it is, and that's what your application is going to listen to for an action in order for you to define or get that data from the barcode scanner. I'm going to go ahead and drop in my globals here. Yeah, so you can see here that this again is just a free form string that I've decided upon this one, and then the first string is actually what I'm going to call this profile, so that when we looked in that list of all the profiles that were defined in DataWedge, that's what it'll be called. So now we should see that our code's happy down here now. Again, we've the category is also somewhat freeform. We could choose from a few different ones, but usually we just throw in the typical Android default one. And then lastly, the intent delivery method. So we provide the ability to either do this via broadcast or to be able to launch an application with this data as the intent bundled, or with the data bundled in the intent. or start a service. So you could start a service with this as well and not have to write an activity as well to consume the data. Of course, the next block here, the top level config bundle is the profile name, and then the next line we're telling it to go ahead and enable this. So you notice when I went into profile 0 and disabled that checkbox, that scanning was turned off. So in this case, I'm going to automatically generate the profile, but I'm going to automatically turn it on as well. And then I'm going to tell DataWedge that if the profile doesn't exist already, go ahead and create it. And the reason why I do this is that I'm likely going to run this, and it's up to you how you intend to do this. You may do other checks to see, query if DataWedge already has your profile created or not if you don't want to run this code. But typically what I do is throw this in my on resume. It'll run and generate if it's not there. Otherwise, it just kind of dies out and doesn't do any work. So again, you can do your own decisions upon when you actually create the profile, but this is going to do it every time my application starts up in the on resume. And then secondly, again, you can choose which application that this profile gets enabled for. So if when your application goes into the background and say the calculator app comes into the foreground, this profile would be disabled, right? There are also intents to say, even if I don't want to associate my application, I could send an intent to DataWedge and say, enable this profile if I wanted to. So I could control it completely there. But in this case, I'm going to tell it that the package name of my application is this, and I'm supplying a wildcard there in the string array to tell it any activity inside this package name I want you to turn this profile on for. And then again, like I said, this is broken down into those different plugins. But each one of these bundles kind of encapsulates the configuration values that I would do for each one of those plugins. The next one here is along with that package name and activity selection, I need to bundle that up into this plugin app list bundle. And configure them. So basically I'm just nesting a bundle within a bundle within a bundle until I get down to the bottom here where I just constructed intent and broadcast that out, and DataWedge is going to pick that up and generate this profile. One of the things that we're actually working on right now that's somewhat of an annoyance, and we're working to fix this, is that in order for you to configure multiple plugins, you have to send multiple intents. And so you'll see that this is a nested block here above, and then I've got one more nested block down below here that is actually turning off keystroke output. So if I want, in my application, I don't want I want to control where that code is going or where that barcode goes, whether it goes into the database or into a form field. I don't want keyboard scanning also to be enabled as well. So I'm going to build another bundle, nest it all again for configuration wise, and broadcast out another intent so that that turns that off for me. And we'll actually use this a little later on to programmatically turn the profile on and off via a switch. So here we have our application to where a method to build this profile, but now we need to actually call this code. I'm going to go ahead and shift over to calling this in my onCreate. And now we should actually be able to run this if all goes well. Fire up Visor as well. All right, so it looks like it already had automatically ran our app. So if we go back to DataWedge here, we should see that it created this profile for us and made all the changes that I told it to make inside the profile. So that's the easy part here. So I'm glad that actually worked. Let's see here. So the next thing I want to do is, we've got this profile built, but we're not receiving any data back yet, and we want to be able to put it into the only form field that I have on here right now. But again, programmatically, you would be able to decide where that code goes if you wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding in some code for throw in some global objects here that we'll be using. So I'm going to construct a class for a broadcast receiver. So simple broadcast receiver that defines a couple of strings at the top. These are specific to the DataWedge API. When the DataWedge broadcast is sent, it's bundled data. So it's going to have more than just your barcode data. It's not going to be just a string of numbers. You're also going to be able to tell what type of barcode it was, whether it was a code 39 or a 128 or a PDF barcode. So you'll know everything about the barcode you scanned as well as the data. So, but this is all embedded in a bundle as well, so you'll want to be able to go through and pick out those pieces of information, and we define those information by these strings. So, COM symbol, and the naming may be a little strange. Let me explain that really quick. Zebra is kind of a collection of a bunch of different companies that have been acquired over a period of time. So, Zebra at its core was initially building industrial scanners, industrial printers, right? And over these past, what has it been, 2 years now? They purchased Symbol. Symbol was actually owned by Motorola at the point in time. So Symbol is the company that actually builds these mobile computers. So again, a lot of our naming conventions and stuff that you'll see in here, you'll see Symbol, you'll see Zebra. Luckily, you won't see Motorola anymore, because there was a long time where we made the decision to go back to making sure that our namespaces were all part of the base company, which is Symbol. Anyway, so that's why they are that way. But anyway, so being able to pick out the particular data string itself, the barcode itself, you would look for the bundle named com.symbol.datawedge.data string, and then be able to also pick out the label type as well by using this string. So if we receive our data back and we check that it is the barcode action that I defined above in a global, I can go through and pick out those pieces of information and shove those into the form field that I want. So now that we've got our barcode receiver defined, we've got a global for that receiver. We're not yet reusing it. Go ahead and register these receivers. Add a method here to go ahead and register the receiver. So I'm creating a intent filter with my barcode action and the default category, and then I'm just calling register receiver on my global barcode data receiver and with that filter. And I'm going to do all this in my own resume and on pause so that I'm properly cleaning up my registered receivers. So let's see. Code there. So again, I'm just calling my register receivers method, and then I'm calling unregister receiver on that global to clean it up after I'm done. So now what we should be able to do, if I've got profile 0 disabled, good. Let me go ahead and deploy this to the device. Build and run. So profile 0 is disabled. And so I shouldn't have any keyboard scanning at all. And before you saw that when we scanned a barcode, it just shoved the barcode data in here. And here I'm actually, if this works properly, the intent will append the barcode type and the barcode value that we scanned. So I'm going to go ahead and, there we go. So programmatically, I'm pulling that in, and through that broadcast receiver, I'm getting that data from DataWedge and putting it in. And again, you can manipulate this any way you want it to. If you don't want all that information, you only want to put the barcode data in there, it's up to you how you want to use it. But that's at its most basic form for intent APIs. And one of the beauties of this is that you're not installing SDKs in your development environment. You're not handling, when we do an upgrade for that SDK, it's just going to be available to you when that particular feature becomes available in the OS. So you'll be able to use that. let's see. So now that we've got a profile created, we're able to receive data back. We can start doing a few fun things like being able to trigger the barcode scan from a soft button. So if your device or whatever, you don't want to use this hardware trigger, or you've got, all these buttons can be redefined to do something else, some other feature, launch an application or whatever. So maybe you have these scan triggers otherwise used for something else. So you would be able to add a button to your application that would allow somebody to trigger this scan as well. So let's go ahead and walk through the code to do that real quick here. The first thing I want to do is add in a button. Properly lay things out for our constraint layout here so that things are happy on the screen. So we should see a scan button off to the top right now, along with our entry field. And then I want to add in our button. So again, I've just went and pulled our button out of the layout and added a callback to it to call a method called soft scan, which I'm going to add in now. And so again, this is using the intent API to, and these are also defined strings that DataWedge is expecting. So in order for me to trigger a soft scan, I have to issue a global action that DataWedge is looking for, and then be able to pass in the command that I want it to do. So the first one is the action, of course, and all commands that you would send to this would start with that action, and then you would manipulate which command you want to send. In this case, I want to tell it to soft scan trigger, and then I want to send the last thing would be to tell it to start scanning. So I can tell it to enable the scanner, but then I can tell it also to start the scan. Be able to go ahead, and as soon as it sees a barcode, go ahead and capture it. And so there's a callback. Let's see here. I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So we'll push this out and see what we've got. Say again.
Right there. Why is it right?
Yeah. It's lost on the screen. Too many icons. Here we go. So now, of course, we've got our button on the screen, and again, I could push the hardware trigger on the side, but I should also be able to push the button on the screen here. Let me actually do this from Visor. And here's one of the features that you wouldn't be able to do with a camera scanner. You can't, and I can go even faster this if I wanted to, but you would never be able to get this kind of throughput through a camera scanner. Let's see here. And again, you can also go back to hardware scanning if you wanted to, but that gives you just that ability to do that from anywhere in your application, depending on whether you wanted hardware or software. And then lastly here, I wanted to kind of show how to manipulate those profiles after the fact. You've got a profile created. You want to be able to, for instance, turn on, off particular barcode symbologies, for instance. You don't want anybody to be able to. You've got a box with 5 different barcodes on it, but you only want them to pick out that one particular one that is of this type, right? So they're not having to fight, oh, I got the wrong one, and scan it different again, or cover them up. For instance, we have other technologies, one called SimulScan, that allows you to define a form field if it's known, or a form if it's known, and be able to define each one of those values, and you can actually pull all of those in with a single scan. I'm not going to talk about that today, but basically there are ways of going around this. But one of the easiest things to do is manipulate which barcode symbologies you want to be able to scan. So in this case, again, you would be able to just reissue and update via that intent API to manipulate any of those settings. If you wanted to turn keyboard output back on, or disable intent output, or switch any of those values, you could flip them on and off via this. And one of the simplest things to kind of demonstrate for the session here is being able to enable and disable that profile. So here I'm going to add in a switch UI element that when we flip that switch back and forth, it's going to send the intent APIs to enable and disable that profile. So let's step back into the code here real quick. Pull in the switch. So again, I've just added in a switch at the bottom there, and via the constraint layout, I've decided where it's actually to be displayed on the screen, and we can switch over to design view and see that it has thrown it up in the top left hand next to the button, and we still have our form field. We'll switch back over to the code and bring that to life here. So I've added pulled in the switch from our layout, and I've added a callback that's going to call a method called configure profile. I'm going to add in that method as well here. Similar to the soft scan, now we're also calling the action and our command, which is set config. Now this is just for clarity. You could take all of these strings and make them global, so you're not reusing and recreating these string objects. So again, just for clarity and being able to push these in via live templates, I want to go ahead and keep everything together and make it clear. But again, we're just building an initial bundle, and we're telling it which profile name, which again we've defined as a global above. We're telling it that we want to enable or disable depending on the value that's passed in through configure profile, the parameter in that method. And then we're telling it that we want to update, as before it was create if not exist. Here we're just updating the profile. And then again, we just construct an intent and pass along that config bundle with our set config action, and this should flip our profile on and off. So I believe that's all the code. See what happens here. All right, so let's see here. Let's go back to DataWedge real quick and see that our profile, one of the key things here is that if it's grayed out, it's disabled, right? So ours is white right now. If we go in, we can actually see the checkbox says that it's enabled. If we go back to our app, we should be able to flip this switch. The intent should have fired in the background, and if we go back to home and look at DataWedge, we should see that our DataWedge profile is disabled. Now, I wanted to make, of course, that is one of the simplest things you could possibly do, and getting into the process of replacing one of those other values or toggling one of those other values is, again, just a process of building those nested bundles and passing it back off. And that's really all I have to show as far as code today, and I really kind of want to open it up for any questions you might have about the technology and whether it's DataWedge or not, or just the devices themselves. If you've got any questions about developing applications for these Android devices. Great. All right.
And if you stop by the Zebra booth, we have
Yeah.
stickers and bags. We have barcodes on all of them. So if you scan those barcodes via any app on your phone, it will take you to a Zebra developer community. You can ask questions there, and there are sample apps. Oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
The
Sorry.
link is right there.
One of the last things I wanted to do is that this sample application that I built during the session, I put it up on GitHub, so you can go directly to the short link here and pull it down and see the code itself and manipulate it if you wanted to. Of course, you'll need one of our devices. DataWedge is available on these devices baked into the BSP, or into the Android operating system. So, and of course, our developer community is there. If you are developing for these devices and you have any issues with it, I will be out there answering your questions along with a lot of these other folks here that are here with us for Zebra today. And then lastly, all of our tools, the EMDK, DataWedge, enterprise browser, all of the documentation is online, so you can go directly to TechDocs here and work through any of the APIs, the sample code, sample applications you can pull down and just run automatically, or you can go through and pick out the pieces of the code you need and put it into your application. So everything is readily available there for you. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you.